Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
PD Beats here from Popternative. Speaking to Aisling, be about This Way Up. Season 2 is going to be premiering on Hulu July 9th. Aisling, thank you so much for your time.
Woohoo! Thank you for your enthusiasm, Peter. I'm enjoying it.
It's an exciting time. You know, season 2 is going to be on Hulu. I mean, it's pretty cool that you get to wear many hats on a project, right? I mean, this is your mastermind pretty much, this project, This Way Up.
My evil plan, my evil mastermind. Yeah. I mean, the thing about wearing many hats is that from the outside, you always think, oh, I'd love to wear loads of hats, but then you realize you've only one head. So, you end up being like, wow, he's got to put them all on top of each other. What a weight. But yeah, it's sort of, once you get over the tiredness, it's quite a satisfying feeling.
Does the mindset change a little bit? I mean, one of the things I love about the show is just the growth of the characters. That is just evident since the beginning you watched the show. Is it safe to say we're going to see kind of more growth, and that was kind of the focus for season 2, these growth of these characters?
And also as a writer, you know, when I was writing the first series, I didn't know, other than I wrote it for myself and Sharon Horgan, who plays my sister, but I didn't know who was going to play a lot of the parts in the early bit. And so now, because I'm bringing back so many characters, to know their voice, to know what they look like, it was so much nicer to write for, say, Tobias Menzies and Indira Varma and Asif Manvi and Kadeef Kirwan. And I could go, oh, what are they good at? Let's up that. Or who had great chemistry? Let's up that. And so that was kind of nice.
I mean, yes, you mentioned some of the people that we could see. I mean, stacked is an understatement. Like, you got a great cast for this project.
No, don't we? It's nuts. Even the people who come in, some of the actors who come in for like a day are so good. And I keep on thinking, oh my God, you're here. Oh my God, what are you doing here on my little show? So yeah, I was extraordinarily lucky with the cast.
Content is becoming global. You know, this started in the UK. You know, now there's kind of deals in the States, could be on Hulu and everything. I mean, that's obviously the plan. Does it blow your mind, though, in general, how global content has become because of streaming? It's crazy.
Yeah, it is. I mean, even like the difference in like a few years since I first started writing the other series and how people can pick up and watch stuff, like even how we promote it. You know, Hulu can now get loads of, like, on their Twitter, their Instagram, just like do loads of little videos or clips. And even 3 years ago, that wasn't sort of something that could happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, the global side of it is nuts. Or even people, like I do a lot of comedy panel shows in the UK, and I've got like a little stand-up special on Netflix, and that people can find you through that. Or I was in The Fall, which was like this crime drama, and then someone's like, I started watching your show because I watched The Fall on Netflix last week. And you're like, what? You watched it last week? I filmed that 5 or 6 years ago. So that's kind of, that bit is, it's lovely actually though, because it feels a little more in the power of the performers.
Absolutely.
And a little bit like it takes the elitism slightly out of it. It's still a very privileged position to be in, to get into things, but you just feel like you can actually maybe even have a bit more of a platform where you talk to audiences directly, and lots of people who are really funny getting to like make their own shows kind of through Instagram and stuff like that.
Shows don't really have a shelf life anymore either, kind of what you're saying too. You could done it like 6 years ago, people watch it.
Oh my God. And what's so hard when you're making stuff is that, like, it took me 9 months to write this series, the longest 6 weeks, 7 weeks of my life to film it, and then the longest 3 months afterwards to edit it. And people were like, I watched it all last night. And you're like, oh God, could you just have taken your time? You know, I binge watch it all in one night. And while that's great, you're like, I cannot keep up the momentum of like making that sort of stuff. So it's so quick. You're like, oh God. Like a chef with your meal, and then someone just kind of wolfs it down.
Comedy and like TV series with the comedy genre have evolved and have changed. And I find it very interesting, and I wanted to kind of ask you about this too, because I feel like This Way Up is a very good example of this. I mean, I feel like we are at this point now where comedy series are more complex. There's a lot more going on. It's not just kind of the slapstick, funny, just kind of goofiness. They hit hard, you know what I mean? This Way Up tackles a lot of situations. It addresses mental health, but it is a comedy series. When did you notice that shift in the comedy genre where it started to kind of pack more stuff, Aisling?
I suppose I noticed it through stand-up,
Yeah.
because stand-up is a place where, you don't have to, give £3 million to someone to just do a set, where the audience suddenly, no matter what they look like, start responding to something and can handle it.
Yeah.
And I think it started with stand-up because you can afford to put on alternative gigs, because sometimes they just cost $10 to put on. And you start seeing people risking things with stand-up in a way. And I was like, oh, I used to do some of this stuff, but actually audiences can handle when you talk about a difficult subject, as long as you've jokes.
Yeah.
And I think with the streaming services, you obviously had to make things that were broadly appealing to more people when there were only 2 or 3 TV stations.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yes.
that didn't give like the breadth of all the different type of human characters. And one thing I really love is, even me as a stand-up, and I'd have a bit of a platform now as a stand-up or a draw, is that the people who watch This Way Up even don't look like what you might think. Like, you might think, look at me, they might be like, oh, women of a certain age, you might like the show. It is not that at all. Men love it, some women hate it. There are people turn up to my gigs who are granddads and fathers and or young guys, and I love that, because what you're accessing is a part of their personality that is not dependent on their race, religion, color, or creed. It's what makes you laugh.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that. And I think now with streaming platforms, it gives people an opportunity to see more of what might make them feel seen.
Yep.
Rather than going, this is, you might be a gluten-free person, only fed bread all your life because you didn't even know there was another option. So it's like that.
Absolutely. Were you hoping that you were going to be able to have a show like This Way Up, where we talked about the beginning, where, you wrote it, you started it? Were you hoping that was going to happen, or did it just kind of happen?
What do you mean, hoping what was going to happen?
Well, were you hoping that you were going to be able to like have your own show where you started it and also wrote it?
I'll be honest, I would much rather co-star in something. It can be quite lonely, and so I would much rather write it with someone and have a co-star. And like Sharon is in it with me, but she kind of like will film for 2.5, 3 weeks, whereas I'm in the full 6 weeks.
Oh yeah.
And I remember the first series round, I was like, oh my God, I've bloody well written myself into every scene. What an idiot.
You're like in the show, yeah.
Man, no days off. You're like, every day this week. And I think a lot of performers are really ambitious, but also quite lazy. Mm-hmm. And so some days I'll be like, oh no. And like loads of performers, you work really hard to get jobs. And then your main question all day long when you're on set is, sorry, when's lunch? When's lunch? What's for lunch? When is lunch? So yeah, it is a dream in one way, but you get a big reality check once you're actually living your dream.
Absolutely. But let's talk a little bit about season 2, because people are going to be able to see season 2 without kind of spoilers or anything. What were you hoping? Like, were there some elements or storylines in season 2 that you were like, hey, before you even started writing it or putting it together, you're like, this has to be in here? Like, what can we expect a little bit that you threw in that had to be in season 2?
Well, with series 1, what I didn't want to put in was she had a breakup a few months beforehand or whatever, but I didn't want to make it a show where it looks like she's getting over a breakup. This is about mental health, but I didn't want to do a disservice to a female character by making it about a man. Mm-hmm. And I suppose I stayed away from, there's twitches of it, but it's not about romance, the first series. It's about all their characters and trying to make a comedy out of loneliness and how that comes out in different places. And the sister relationship is the romance of the series.
Yep, 100%.
Whereas in series 2, I suppose because I established that that's not what it is, I could play around a bit more with relationships and sex and long-term relationships and new relationships and the version of toxic love that we often see in movies, which actually, if you look at a lot of the best rom-coms, they're actually very toxic relationships, probably between emotional addicts, facing chaos. It's running through an airport and you're like, no, that should have happened. Don't run through an airport. Wait till they get back, process what's happened, see if you work out. And that is a more safe type of love. And so I definitely did want to look into, in series 2, different forms of love and an audience expectations and what they think they want, rather than when they watch it, what they realize may or may not be right.
Absolutely. Whether it's stand-up, writing, acting in This Way Up, I mean, it's all storytelling. What is your favorite thing about being a storyteller, Aisling? Is there something that kind of stands out?
That's a lovely question. Do you know what? I haven't been asked that question before. perfect Peter. I think I love a feeling of a light bulb, or when people feel seen, or that's me. I love when I'm doing stand-up and I can see someone elbow the person beside them and point and going, that's you, or when I get an Instagram tweet message going, oh my God, did you write this show for me? Or and something where I've managed to click on, and you don't know, honestly, I throw out so much bull sh1t sometimes out on stage that you're like, wow, that was a bad gig and there were no light bulbs on tonight, we were sitting in the dark. But sometimes you'll get this feeling where you've done it and you've made people forget they were sitting in their chairs, and that's the ultimate experience. If people are aware of their chairs and how uncomfortable they were, it's not going great. And if you can make people forget that the kettle needs to be boiled or that they're sitting in a chair, whatever, that's the magic there, when you've got people in your hands and you know what you're doing, like a conductor.
Oh, absolutely. It's funny because you mentioned the stand-up, and I'm wondering, because I was that person. Everyone had like a group of friends that there was like that one person that even though they were not trying to be funny, they were always funny. Did you have someone in that group? Was that you in that group? You know, like you're just like talking and people are like, that's hilarious. Like, I didn't mean to.
I was always trying. I was the person in the group who was always very actively, like what Anya, my character, does. She's always trying to make people laugh. I was never the person in the group who was like, accidentally, no matter what they said was funny, even when they were trying to be serious. Like when I'm serious, I got very serious, watch out. And so, but I definitely, I'm not someone who likes being the funniest in the room. I love being funny with other people, and most of my friends are funny. I gravitate towards other funny people, and I love playing. So my favorite thing is to play with someone rather than to sort of do it on my own. And I'm not trying to make myself seem like a lovely person there, but that's what gets me up in the morning, if I have someone to play with and bounce back and forward off. That's my favorite way to exist, whether it's on stage or with an audience member or in a scene. That's my favorite thing in the world.
Absolutely. Before we wrap up quickly, I mean, whether it's season 1 or season 2, when they watch This Way Up, what are you hoping they get out of it, Aisling?
Well, if I would hope you'd watch season 1 first. That for me would make sense, Peter. So I think we should pitch that as a plan.
Yes.
Season 1 first, then season 2. I would hope that you find a little bit of yourself in there, and maybe if you've been struggling, you feel seen and feel like it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
The reason I called it This Way Up is because that's what you see written on the side of boxes. And it means that you don't always know that something fragile is inside from the outside, but you have to kind of be careful how you hold it. But also the arrows are pointing upwards. So it's like, you know, it's a positive. It's not things going downhill. We start from the bottom of the hill, and the show is about to climb upwards. And it doesn't always go well, but it's not headed back towards the bottom of the hill. And I think especially after this last year and a half, when so many people have struggled in various guises, and a lot of people way more than others, but the bit of like your morale and your sanity and holding on to that, knowing that this is just a bit, you will power through, and I hope you find what helps you.
Absolutely. Aisling, thank you so much for coming on Popternative to talk about season 2 of This Way Up. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Petey Beats.
Absolutely. So
Thank you so much.
Yeah, July 9th on Hulu, and people could follow you on social media, keep up to date with everything.
Yes, they can. I'm on social media. Imagine what a team. At We Miss B, and that's spelled WeeMissBea.
Amazing. Well, this has been Popternative, youtube.com/Popternative for previous episodes. Look out for season 2 of This Way Up, July 9th on Hulu. Until next time, this is Aisling B and Petey Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.